Hello, welcome to another video and welcome to my House of Sky and Breath everything you need to know catch up video thing. So first of all, I'm not feeling well. I've been ill all week and I do not feel 100%, so this video might be all over the place and I apologise. Second of all, I don't know if that was words. Secondly, I feel like this video is going to be so much harder to do than the first one because the plot of Sky and Breath is so much more complicated than the plot of Earth and Blood. So in Sky and Breath we've got in a lot more characters' perspectives, and the plot has really widened. So there is a lot. So there is a lot going on, which makes it quite confusing. And also because I was reading this when I was sick, I haven't made as many notes as I had before. So, you know, that's also a problem. I'm going to try and do this in a similar vein to how I did the Earth and Blood one, which is I'll go through like the key points from different characters' perspectives. I'm being joined by Bella. But I am going to start off by running through the actual plot itself, just because I feel like that's going to be a little bit more necessary for this one. So we start off in Sky and Breath with finding out about Sophie. Sophie is a rebel. She is she's infiltrated a rebel, like a prison camp, to try and rescue her brother, who is a 13-year-old child and has been there for about 3 years at this point. She is intending to break her brother out and basically come away. She has told the rebel leaders that she has got this war-winning, like game-changing information, but she won't tell anybody what it is. And she's basically using that as collateral, as like leeway, so that the rebels will be there to pick up her and her brother. She gets them out, but they are caught. The kids get away, but Sophie is captured by the Hind, and Sophie is killed. So with this, we have met, or we have heard of the Hind before. The Hind is one of Sandriel's triarii. She is a deer shifter who is like Sandriel's main like torturer, I guess. So then back in Crescent City, Tharion, who is a merman that we met in Earth and Blood, Tharion is asked by his queen, the River Queen, to look into the death of Sophie and to find her body, or to find her, because the River Queen doesn't think that she is dead. And it turns out Sophie is a Thunderbird, which is a form of magic shifter that was thought to be extinct. Ethan gets kicked out of the wolf pack and comes to live with Bryce. There is a new archangel who is Celestina, and she brings over some of Sandriel's old triarii. So Pollux and Bastion are now part of the triarii, along with Isaiah, Hunt, and Naomi. Wow, words, can't remember. So Pollux is known as the Hammer. Bastion is the Hellhound. Hunt basically obviously knows these ones from when he was like being tortured by Sandriel, but he has always hated Pollux, the Hammer. He is like, again, one of the main like torturers. He just delights in torture. So Hunt has been asked to show Bastion around, and Bastion almost seems to be nice, and Hunt's like, nah, not buying it. So we then have like just some kind of like stuff going on in the city. Hunt and Bryce at this point are still not having sex. I don't really know why they decided they didn't want to have sex. It's really quite annoying. They also then meet Cormac. Cormac is one of Rune's cousins. He is of the Avalon Fae, and it turns out that he has been betrothed to Bryce. The Autumn King has basically betrothed them. So Bryce is like, no, absolutely not. Rune does not like Cormac because Cormac tried to kill him once. And yeah, they basically aren't really fans of each other. Cormac also has shadows, and he can like teleport effectively. I'm going to come back to that. Cormac turns out is actually part of like the rebel group. He finds out that like Tharion is investigating Sophie. Tharion's basically asked help from like the rest of the gang into like finding out like what happened to Sophie. Cormac finds out that Rune can like mind speak, and so asks Rune to join like the rebel gang and be a contact for someone called Agent Daybright. Sophie was the contact, but she is now dead. Rune agrees, ends up falling in love with Agent Day. The whole gang go to this like rebel, are all trying to find at this point. Hang on, I should probably go back a bit. They're also trying to find Emile, who is Sophie's little brother. Again, a lot of like major players are trying to find this kid because they think that he is also going to have the Thunderbird powers that Sophie had. But no one knows where he's gone. He ran away from the rebel boat when he was rescued. So the whole gang is there sort of trying to like chase after this kid. They go to a rebel base and they blow it up because they don't like what the rebels are doing. And then they get caught by the Hind and the Hammer and the Harpy, who again are all Sandriel's Triari, like the really horrible evil ones. The Hind drops like this silver, this like glowing stone into the ocean, and the gang get rescued by the Ocean Queen's city liner. They all think that the Hind is just sort of like waiting for the opportune moment to sort of like come and like attack them. At this point, Bryce and Hunt have sex and discover that they can teleport if they like merge their powers together. It's weird. What happens next? Ethan is kind of worrying about Connor and the Pack of Devils. So, missed a point. It turns out that Danica was in touch with Sophie because obviously Danica has been involved. And she had told Sophie that there's a place in Lunathian where she can come, like when she rescues her brother, where they can come, which will be safe. And it kind of suggests that it's going to be the Bone Quarter. So Hunt and Bryce go to the Bone Quarter, meet the Underking, discover there is no child hiding out there, but that actually the Bone Quarter is kind of a bit of a lie, and that once people die, their souls don't just go there to rest forever. After a few years, they get turned into what's called Second Light, which is basically back to like nothing, and the Underking eats some of their power. Fun. So Ethan is now worried about Connor and the Pack of Devils, so goes to the Mystics, who can kind of basically talk to the dead. In there, Ethan discovers that one of the Mystics is a wolf, and that the astronomer who's kind of in charge of these Mystics has these like rings with sprites in them. Ethan steals the rings. He at this point is living with Rune, Flynn and Deck because he got fed up of hearing Bryce and Hunt have sex. And they crack the sprites out of the rings. One of the sprites is not a sprite, she is in fact a dragon. The dragon then ends up selling herself to the Viper Queen. We find Emil, by the way, at this point, the kid. We found him. He's cool, he's safe. Bryce has taken him to go and live with her parents. They have adopted him. The dragon kind of like sells herself to the Viper Queen to be like one of the pit fighters, and Flynn's just very upset with this because how dare you rather be with the Viper Queen than me. Because of this thing with the Second Light, they decide that actually they want to kind of like find out more about this. There's there's a link to the Asteri in this as well. So again, they get caught by some of the rebels. Bastian helps them out and helps them to escape. And then he tells Hunt and Bryce that actually he was Danica's mate. He has got tattooed on his chest in Danica's handwriting, "Through love all is possible." So they all kind of basically then at this point the whole crew decides to go off to the Asteri and try and find out what it is that the Asteri are hiding, what it is that Danica found out. Tharion and Cormac are there to create a diversion by blowing up like some rebel thing, like some like munitions factory or something. And Rune, Bryce and Hunt are breaking in to the Asteri's like castle. Cormac gets killed in the explosion of the distraction. Hunt, Bryce and Rune get caught. So Bryce has again the whole like villain monologue with Rigelus, one of the Asteri, who basically tells her that they have been travelling around different planets for millennia, and that this planet they've brought people over from another planet, because there were two planets that had the perfect kind of people in. So one were Fae as we know them, and the other one were Fae that actually were shifters. Important point, we'll come back to it. Anyway, they all get caught. We then find out that the Hind is actually Agent Daybright. She is one of the good guys, but she still has to obviously pretend to be nasty. And then right at the end, Bryce manages to create a portal. She decides she needs to get to Hell to find Adis, because Adis has been helping her throughout. He's been saying that he is going to be bringing, that the armies of Hell are getting ready. And Bryce realised that actually was getting ready to like help them to overthrow the Asteri. Basically manages to create a portal, does not end up in Hell. We're going to get to that. So that was a very, very messy plot overview, but let's go through again, character by character, sort of the important points for each character as we get to them. So we're going to, as usual, start off with Bryce. So Bryce has been acknowledged as a princess by her father, because the way that she kind of like came into her Starborn power, her father's had to acknowledge her. She is now acknowledged as a princess, and she works in the Fae Gallery. Jasper's antiquities were obviously destroyed at the end of Earth and Blood, so Bryce now works in the Fae Gallery. Bryce decides that she's going to get involved and find Emil, and again, this is kind of just because she sees him as valuable because he is a child. She doesn't want him for any kind of like power. She doesn't want his power. She doesn't want him for any political reason. She just thinks he is a child and he therefore deserves to be safe. So she is trying to like find him and keep him safe. Adis, the cat, turns up in her flat and asks her why she doesn't use her Starborn powers. He then also tells her about Queen Thea and Prince Peleus, who were like the original Starborn queen, and how and Adis basically says how he was in love with the queen, and that Hell fought on the side of the Fae to overthrow the Asteri. But Bryce is like, wait, that's completely different to anything that we've ever been taught, so I don't know what to believe. When she and Hunt finally have sex, they find out that they are in fact mated, as in like Sarah J Maas mates. And that's all a little bit complicated because she is meant to be engaged to Cormac, and yet she is now mated to an angel. It also means that Hunt is now technically a prince. Bryce has, at this point as well, used the name Princess Bryce Danan to kind of like get her own way with a couple of things. And the Autumn King has said, right, that's you acknowledging that you are a princess. You are now using your name. We've had your name changed. You are now a princess of the Fae. And Bryce is furious about this because, you know, he's changed her name. But she kind of didn't realise that there would be consequences of pulling the princess card. Bryce and Hunt go to the Bone Quarter and they find out about Second Light. So Second Light is after you've, so basically once you make the drop, you produce First Light. And after you've died, your soul produces Second Light. And Second Light is again what kind of like powers the city. But everyone had been told that in the Bone Quarter is the eternal resting place. You know, you'll go there and you will rest in peace forever. Whereas actually you'll go there and you'll rest for like 100 years. Then you'll get turned into Second Light. Once everybody has forgotten about you, has forgotten your name, you get turned into Second Light. The other thing, I haven't actually written this down, but I should probably mention this. Bryce with her Starborn like power. So when Bryce is arguing with her father about how he has now declared her a princess of the Fae, and she's like, well, you betrothed me to Cormac, I don't know him, I don't want to be married to him. And her father says that this was something important because Avalon has magic, is so old, it has such high magical walls that even the Asteri can't go there. He was betrothing Bryce to Cormac to protect her. Obviously Bryce thinks that's bullshit. But I do feel like there is something in there. I think Avalon is going to be super important. And again, I am going to come to Avalon in the theories section. But back to Bryce. She has discovered Emil. She has got her mum to adopt him. They've all ended up, like I said, going to the Asteri. She discovers that the Asteri are also powered by Second Lights. They are almost like parasites that just feed off the first and second light of the people in this world, which again is the information that Danica and Sophie had discovered. This is the kind of war-changing, war-winning information for the rebels. She also discovers this room that it's called Dusk's Truth, that has all of these different like planets and like world maps in them, which again has got notes on like the planets and like when the Asteri conquered there and when they left and why, whether they were just not good food sources. Regulus comes along and gives the whole like fill-in monologue, but he explains that this world was good, but it wasn't perfect, and so they brought in the Fae from these two different worlds, the Shifters and the like Fae, and they are the ones then there was the war between the Fae and the demons from hell, and they closed up the rift so they couldn't keep on bringing people over into this world. It also meant that the Asteri can't leave this world either. After Bryce has been captured, and she has basically spoken to Hunt and Rune has told her to take the Star Sword. Hunt has told her to go to hell, get Adis, get the armies, come back and rescue them. So Bryce, because she has got the horn in her back, she's able to make portals. Hunt fires his power at her back, at the horn. She manages to create a portal, thinking she's creating a portal to hell, falls through there. When she gets there, she is basically found by this person who has got black leathery wings. She's brought into a house where there is another male with black leathery wings. There is a small female who looks just like Fury. And then there are like two other chicks who look kind of similar. There is a final male with, again, the black leathery wings, who is the spitting image of Rune. None of them speak the same language. Bryce, as they go in, like, where's Adis? What part of hell am I in? Where am I? She realises like she's not getting anywhere. They're not speaking the same language. She tries the ancient Fae language, and the person that looks like Fury suddenly goes, no one's spoken this language for 15,000 years. Who are you? And Bryce, again, because she is fluent in the ancient Fae language, manages to respond. And the final line is, hello, Bryce Quinlan. My name is Rhysand. So Bryce is in Prithian. So we do know, obviously, there's now going to be, there is obviously a ACOTAR Crescent City crossover, because Bryce is in the world of ACOTAR with the Inner Circle. She's there with Rhysand. The character that looks like Fury is Amren. Obviously, throughout ACOTAR, there is a whole mystery about what and who is Amren, and it's the same mystery that is about Fury, what and who is Fury. We did find out at the end of ACOTAR, so the end of ACOTAR War, that Amren was like a ancient being, and that when the cauldron managed to like release her from the body, she kind of like became like this ancient, like mystical, magical being. So we think that Fury might be the same, but again, we don't know what Fury is. So that's kind of where I'm at with Bryce. And so we're going to move on to... Okay, so Hunt. So Hunt was part of the Triari under Mika. He's now a freed angel, but he's still staying working. He's helping support Isaiah, looking after the 33rd. There's now a new archangel, Celestina. She seems really nice. She seems like a decent person. But because there were two archangels, Mika and Sandriel, who were killed, that means there are two new archangels in power, taking over their two kind of territories, which are Celestina and Ephraim. Celestine never had her own Triari. Ephraim did, but he didn't have like a full strength one or something. So they've split up Sandriel's Triari between the two, which means that Celestina has brought Baxian and Pollux with her. When Hunt sees them, the first thing he does is beat the shit out of Pollux. But Celestina asks Hunt to basically look after Baxian. She asks him to be like Baxian's guide, to help kind of like acclimatize him to the city, to get him used to like modern living, because Sandriel didn't really have any technology in her castle, so like Bastian doesn't know anything about kind of, you know, like normal modern life. And Baxian appears to be nice. One of the first things Baxian says to Hunt is, I'm glad someone finally killed Mika. And, you know, Hunt's like, well, I've always known you as an absolute bastard, so I assume you are still an absolute bastard. And thinks that Bastian's playing a game. There's a few other scenes where Bastian turns up as if he is doing the right thing and being like a nice guy. So, for example, Sabine, Danica's mum, turns up at Bryce's flat and is basically attacking Ethan and Bryce. Hunt goes there to rescue Bryce, and Bastian follows, and it's Bastian that basically tells Sabine to like back off. But again, Hunt's like, well, why are you following me? Now you know where I live. I'm not happy with this. Like, what's going on? He doesn't trust Bastian. Bastian also, when they are at the rebel base and they get caught, it is Bastian who kind of warns them that they are coming and like gets them away. And towards the end, they are in a temple which gets attacked by the rebels. Bryce manages to get a call out to the nearest like Ox group, who happens to be Pollux and the Hind and the Dreadwolves, who are like the Hinds torturing people. They know that if they get caught there, they are all dead. But Bastian kind of appears and manages to get them out through a secret passageway. At this point, Bryce is like, right, stop. Who the fuck are you? Because you're not a good person. You've been evil and like a torturer for years. So who are you? What are you doing? What game are you playing? And that's then when Bastian says that he was Danica's mate. We also discover partway through that Hunt, and again, this is something that we have been told by, I think it is by one of the princes of hell, that Hunt was bred to be receptive to demons. So we've never known who Hunt's father is. Hunt doesn't know who Hunt's father is. But I think this is interesting because, again, there's also another part somewhere where they say that Hunt doesn't smell like a normal angel. And he obviously has got different magic to the rest of the angels. But he's known to be the best demon hunter, and I believe it was Apollon who was like who's the Star Eater, Prince of the Pit, who says that actually he was bred to be receptive to demons. That is why he is such a good demon hunter. Which is just an interesting little tidbit towards who is going to be Hunt's father. Right at the end, when everyone is captured and Hunt manages to help Bryce get away, create the portal and get away, Ridiculous, the right hand, one of the Asteri, tattoos Hunt's brow again. He's captured, he is tattooed, he is a slave again. And his memory is potentially wiped. So it then says, Hunt remembers no more. Now, I don't know whether his memory has been wiped or potentially he could have just been that he passed out or something and he blacked out, he didn't know what was going on then. I feel like even if his memory has been wiped, there will be a way to get his memories back, just because of the way that him and Bryce are mated, but it might take at least one other book. I think going into book 3, Hunt is going to be an enemy. Hunt is going to be, working for the Asteri, I imagine, and he's not going to be the Hunt that we have come to know. So maybe that's how Sarah J. Maas is going to do her trademarked mass twist of, we're going to get you to love one male and one couple, and then bam, no you're not, we're going to bring in someone else. But I really hope she isn't going to do that. It could be that Hunt doesn't ever get his memories back, and that he is going to be, he's going to ignore the mating bond or something. I don't know. But let's get on to our next character. I'm going to go to Ethan next. So Ethan, at the very beginning, has been kicked out of his pack. He's been beaten up by Sabine and Amelie and has been kicked out. He goes to live with Bryce because Bryce is literally the only person left in the city who is kind of his friend. And Bryce basically being the great friend that she is, no matter all the history with Ethan, she's like, no, you were my friend before this. I'm not leaving you to bleed out on the street, so you're staying with me, I'm getting you better, and you live with me now, and it's okay. After about a week, Rune says, Ethan, do you want to come and live with us instead? Because obviously Ethan, with his wolf's hearing, can hear everything that Bryce and Hunt are up to, and it's all just a little bit awkward. So Ethan basically is just now kind of part of the gang. He then, he finds the wolf in the astronomer's tanks, and he steals the rings that have the sprites and the dragons in them. Ethan is attacked by a demon and is healed by Hypaxia, the witch queen. So Ethan has become Hypaxia's bodyguard. She doesn't trust the rest of the witch clan, and Rune says that, offers Ethan to kind of be her bodyguard and look after her while she's in the city. Right at the end, Ethan discovers that the wolf in the tank is a Fender heir. He speaks to the Prime and he says, look, there's a wolf in that tank, she's an alpha, we need to get her out. It's not fair that she's been sold into slavery. Sabine says, no, you're not doing anything. And the Prime also doesn't say anything. But then the Prime afterwards kind of goes, Ethan, there's more than one Fender heir. So Ethan kind of takes upon himself to stand guard over this wolf in the astronomer's tent. Right at the end, this is when shit has gone down within the Asteri world. Hunt and Rune and Bryce have been kidnapped, been captured, I guess. And so Flynn calls Ethan and says, we need you now. And Ethan's like, yeah, but I'm standing guard over this wolf. And Flynn's like, no, absolutely not. We need you. So Ethan manages to actually break the wolf out. He's like, you know, you need to wake up, you need to wake up, you need to come with me. And this wolf does wake up. So this means that there is a new Fender heir. We don't know anything about her. This wolf doesn't even know her own name. She doesn't necessarily know that she's an alpha, but she could be a alternative to Sabine. Speaking of Fender heirs, let's move on to Danica. Because even though she has been dead for about 3 years at this point, she is still a key character. So, we discover fairly early on, Tharian discovers in looking into Sophie, that she knew Danica and that there is an email chain between Danica and Sophie. This kind of leads to some suggestions that Danica was in fact a rebel, which again leads into something that Philip Briggs had said when Hunt and Bryce questioned him. He had said that Danica was a rebel sympathiser, and Bryce was like, no, she wasn't. No. But here she is emailing and working with Sophie. We also discover that Danica was a bloodhound, which meant that she could scent out bloodlines. She could tell who was related to who by their scent, which meant that she knew that Rune and Bryce were related, like were siblings, before they actually told each other. She would have known what fury was. We know that, again, we know in Earth and Blood she did know what fury was, but again she scented it rather than kind of like worked it out. So she can tell like who's related to who, and she can, once she sniffed someone, she knows them and she can find them literally in the lineup. We then discover that she got that gift from her father, and her father is Mordok. Mordok is the lead Dreadwolf. So the Dreadwolves are the Hind's like group of, I don't know, group of assassins maybe. They're basically like horrible bullies who are some form of wolf shifter, but they kind of delight in torture. In my mind, they look like the werewolf in, like the bad werewolf in like the later Harry Potter books films, whose name I can't remember, but you know, the one that like ate children for fun. Greyback? That's what in my mind Mordok is. Like a wolf, but it's kind of like revels in the eating of people. So Baxian actually does at one point, you know, say like, do you remember that time when Mordok ate those humans? He was pissed off and he ate some humans. So Mordok is her father, and again, Danica hasn't told anybody this. All she'd ever said to Bryce was that her father was a male, not even worth mentioning. Mainly because Mordok is one of the most evil things on the planet. So we then discover that Baxian is her mate. This is a big deal because Danica had never told Bryce that she had a mate, and Bryce was like, no, there's no way that she had a mate, absolutely no chance. You know, she used to party and like used to sleep around, and Baxian's like, not for the last 2 years, she didn't. And Bryce was like, wait, yeah, actually on the last night I remember joking to her that she hadn't been on a date in 2 years. So we kind of realised that actually, yeah, that this could happen, that Baxian was her mate. So Danica, in her kind of like speaking to Sophie, had tried to get given Sophie this kind of clue, this door number, and asked her to kind of break into the Asteri's like library and find out what was behind there. It'd taken Sophie 3 years, but that's the information that she had basically taken to her grave with her. The door number that she got was from Baxian, and the secret behind the door was the secret of Second Light, and that the Asteri basically suck like the life out of everybody on the planet and have done this on multiple other planets as well. So that's Danica. I'm going to then go to Rune. So Rune, because he can mind talk with people, he agrees to spy for the rebels and make contact with Agent Daybright. Sophie was the last contact with Agent Day, but obviously since she had died, that they had no more contact, so Rune agrees that he will try and do it. he becomes more and more close with Day. He starts to like connect to her on like a more kind of like personal level. He tries, they agree that they're going to meet up at the mating ceremony for Celestina and Ephraim. They agree that they'll meet at the specific point at midnight. Rune goes up the steps to the specific point and sees the harpy, and he's like, oh my god, no. Day? And she's like, what are you talking about? No. As he walks away, he sees the hind as kind of like had followed him there. And he's like, oh my god, this is so dangerous. This is such a stupid idea. The hind and the harpy are around, you know, like anything could have happened. Eventually he does, he kind of like, he ends up actually having sex with Day on their like mind link, which is a little bit weird. His disguise on their like mind link is Night, so he's known as Agent Night. It's stars and night, and it basically just looks like Reese from Akatar, as in that's the kind of image that Reese sent to Feyre of like the stars and night, and that's again is like how Rune kind of accidentally shielded himself. As they get to, once they are all captured at the end by the Asteri, Rune is being tortured by the harpy. She's like got a knife to his throat and is kind of like slowly trying to kind of cut him. The hind comes in and kills the harpy, and that's when Rune realizes who she is. The hind admits who she is, but she says like, you know, I've got to keep my cover. I can't be seen to help you. So the hind doesn't do up, you know, she hears Pollux come in. She lets Bryce loose. Bryce is there kind of like, gets herself, like, starts beating up the hind, so it looks like they were in a fight. Pollux takes the other three with them, and again, pulls Bryce off, and so him and the hind are taking them, the three of them, to the Asteri. The hind has given Bryce the key to the handcuffs and has got hers undone, so Bryce is literally holding her handcuffs done up rather than actually being like in cuffs. When they get there, so at this point as well, Rune is blocking himself off from the hind. He's not letting her come in. She, as Agent Day, is trying to like kind of speak to him, and he's like, no, I can't process this, absolutely not. So at the end, we don't really know what happens to Rune at the end. We know Hunt gets a slave tattoo. Bryce has disappeared into Prithian. Hunt gets a slave tattoo and potentially his memory wiped, but we don't really know what's happened to Rune. He's just there. So interesting, we don't know what's going to happen to him next. I'm then going to move on to the last character I'm going to talk about, which is Lydia, aka the Hind. She is Hypaxia's sister. Hypaxia is the witch queen and Rune's fiance. Lydia is her older sister, but Lydia did not inherit any of the witch gifts. She became a shifter instead of a witch, whereas Hypaxia inherited the witch gift, so inherited the throne. She comes to Lunathion with Ephraim when he is there to kind of celebrate his mating bond with Celestina. And again, like I said, like she meets Rune. There's this kind of question mark of, is the hind Day? Is she Agent Day? But she then, jumps in front of the harpy, kills the harpy to save Rune, and is discovered to be Agent Day. She also says that she tried to save Sophie, so she dropped a white stone in the ocean when she killed Sophie, which called the Ocean Queen's liner, but they arrived too late to save Sophie. She did the same when the whole gang kind of like escaped from the rebels. The hind found them, dropped a white stone in the ocean, was like, oh, look how deep it is here. And then the liner comes up and like kind of rescues them before the hind could kill them. Basically meaning that she has always been trying to help while still maintaining her cover as like this like super evil person. So I'm going to go through some of the other like newer characters that we meet. So right at the beginning we meet Sophie, Agent Silver and Pippa, who are the rebel soldiers. Agent Silver is Cormac, and he is betrothed to Bryce. He is an Avalon Fae prince. We also meet Celestina, who is the new Archangel. She also appears to be nice, which again is very strange. Nobody trusts her because she seems to be nice. Tharion has been asked to search for Sophie's corpse. So we did meet Tharion in Earth and Blood. He is one of the Mer, but he is now a much bigger character in Sky and Breath. Cormac is Agent Silver. He is Sophie's lover. So he's trying to find out what happened to Sophie because he loved her rather than she is just an agent who has gone missing. Agent Daybright, who we find out right at the end is the Hind. She is another one of the rebel agents who, again, is a mysterious person. They know that she's very high up in the Asteri's court, but they don't know who she is. Hypaxia and Tharion are quite good friends. They met at the summit at the end of Earth and Blood and became close and stayed in touch. So they're kind of like platonic besties, which is super cute. And towards the end, Tharion moves in with Rune. He decides he wants to get out of the River Queen's court. He no longer wants to be betrothed to the River Queen's daughter. So he moves in with Rune. Right at the very end, he does break off his engagement with the River Queen's daughter. The River Queen then is understandably furious. Tharion sells himself to slavery to the Viper Queen. The Viper Queen would be the only person who would be able to kind of like save him from himself and save him from the River Queen. And he's hoping that he can defect from her again at some point in the future. He probably won't be able to, let's be honest. He's kind of made a massive boo-boo there. So my last two bits I want to go through are the kind of like key crossover points and also then my follow-up theories for Flame and Shadow. So key crossover points that I think are important. First of all, Rune. Rune has got the shadow gift. He is described as having purple eyes, just like Reese. His disguise, again, like I said, is Stars and Nights, just like Reese. Right at the end, when Bryce is in Prythian and she sees Reese for the first time, she describes him as the spitting image of Rune. I think there is something important there as to why do Reese and Rune look identical. Queen Thea, who was one of the first Starborn Fae, her daughter got away. We don't know where she got away to, but something happened. Now, my theory is, did Thea's daughter get away to either the world of Akatar or the world of Throne of Glass? Is she someone key in one of those two worlds? So, you know, she could be potentially, maybe, I can't remember what she's called. Is it Maeve in Throne of Glass? He's like the Fae Queen. She could be someone high up in Akatar instead. I can't off the top of my head think of any like key female Fae from the world of Akatar. Could maybe even be Amryn, but I don't think so. But I feel like there's something important there. Cormac can winnow. They call it teleporting because Crescent City is much more modern, but Cormac can winnow, and the way he describes it as folding a piece of paper is the same way that winnowing is described by, I think, by Asriel when he's teaching Feyre to winnow. So again, that to me proves that the Avalon Fae have got a link to Akatar. Regulus admits that there are Fae from other worlds which he's brought into the world of Crescent City. So there are Fae that look like Fae, which I think are from the world of Akatar, and Shifter Fae, which I think are from the world of Throne of Glass. Because in Throne of Glass, the Fae, like Rowan, can shift into birds. Lysandra can shift into a cat. There are a lot of shifters in the world of Throne of Glass, whereas there aren't really shifters in the world of Akatar, as far as I can recall. cool. I suppose Rhys can shift, and there is the kind of shift between like Tamlin with his beast mode, but there aren't sort of shifters as we kind of know them in like Crescent City. So then moving into my theories and kind of things that I think, hang on, like, is this going to be important? One of the things I was saying in my last video is with Earth and Blood and Sky and Breath, we followed someone, you know, our main characters of that book was someone from that house. So like effectively the main character of Earth and Blood pretty much was Danica, who's a shifter. Our main character of Sky and Breath was Bryson Hunt. At this point, Bryce has declared herself as like a Fae princess, so she is of Sky and Breath, and Hunt has always obviously been of Sky and Breath. Whereas in Earth and Blood, Bryce was more sided with the humans, who are part of House of Earth and Blood. So book 3, House of Flame and Shadow, I feel is going to have a key character who is from the House of Flame and Shadow. We find out in this one that Fury is from Flame and Shadow. So could she be the main focus of book 3? I think the Viper Queen could be a key player. Jessica could be a key player. They seem to be the main 3 characters that we've heard of who are from Flame and Shadow. And so I think one of those 3 are going to be a key player in the book. I don't know who it's going to be yet. I think book 3 is going to be interesting because we've got Bryce and Prithium. So there's going to be, I feel like it's going to be kind of like a completely split, you know, 2 separate books almost. Cormac is described as having an arm tattoo, a tattoo that goes along around the top of his arm. Hey, Bella. I don't know if this will be important or not, but I thought it was interesting that it was like specified. Tattoos are quite important in ACOTAR, so I do wonder whether Cormac's tattoo is going to be key. Baxian has been described as the chief spy master, which is the same way that Azriel is described. So again, is there a crossover there? Avalon, I think, is going to be super important. So Avalon, like I said, the Fae King, the Autumn King, just says that Avalon is failed with such ancient magic that even the Asteri can't go there without permission. We know that there is a missing court from ACOTAR. So we've got, in ACOTAR, you've got spring, summer, autumn, winter, and then you've got dawn, day, and night. There isn't a dusk, which is kind of like the missing court. Is Avalon going to be that missing court from ACOTAR? And again, there was the whole thing of Dusk's Truth, which was the room that kind of explained all of the different like worlds. Is that kind of saying that Dusk is the missing court and it's going to be maybe Avalon? Towards the end, it's implied that the Asteri built the Illyrians. So Rigelus says in one of the old worlds that they were in, they built a warrior tribe that was the prototype for the angels. So if the Asteri built the Illyrians, is there something in that? Is that maybe something to do with Hunt's father? Don't know. So I think that is everything that I think you might need to know before going into Flame and Shadow. I'm not going to be doing one of these for House of Flame and Shadow because I'm going to need to read it 2 or 3 times before I'll figure out what's important and what is not. But I think we're going to see a lot more of the crossover. Obviously we're going to see a lot of the ACOTAR Crescent City crossover with Bryce being in Prithian, but I think we are going to get Throne of Glass being pulled in as well. I don't know whether we will meet any of the Throne of Glass characters or whether there will just be like implied crossover with, you know, maybe mentioning witches with iron tipped fingers, or Fae who could shift into birds. You know, I feel like there will be a crossover with Throne and Glass, but I don't know whether it will be like as explicit as the one with ACOTAR will be. Right at the end, we did see Azriel get very excited when he realised his knife and the Star Sword are identical. Bryce also was aware of that. We have throughout been told that the Star Sword had got a missing twin, which was the knife. So again, we have confirmed that they are one and the same. I do wonder whether there's going to be any kind of like, well, how long is it going to take? I imagine halfway through the book, Bryce will get back to Crescent City and possibly bring some of the inner circle with her. But I don't know how, like, what kind of the purpose is going to be. She's obviously trying to find herself an army to bring back and kind of like save the world. The other thing I was thinking with that as well, because we don't know what's going on with Hunt and we haven't yet had Asriel's mate story. Now, I don't know if I'm going to like this, even as I say this, I don't know if this is what I want, but part of me would kind of love it if Asriel and Bryce became mates. Like, I'm also kind of like, no, I'd hate it, but I'd also kind of love it. I don't know. So that is enough talking from me, because as you can probably tell, my voice will not last very much longer. If you like this video, please leave me a like, subscribe down below. Please drop any of your Flame and Shadow theories down below as well. Obviously, this is all spoilers, so we can spoil away in the comments, because we are actually, yeah, no, we can drop theories. We'll drop theories. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.